What happens when two music legends, each with decades of experience, collide over artistic integrity and respect? Well, you're about to find out. Because what went down between Morris Day and Jennifer Hudson on her talk show was absolutely explosive. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. By the end, one of them walked off the set in pure frustration. Jennifer Hudson sat across from Morris Day, the legendary frontman of the time. What began as a routine interview about his new music quickly spiraled into something no one saw coming. The conversation started innocently enough, with Jennifer asking about his latest project and his thoughts on the current music industry. Morris, dressed in his signature style, seemed relaxed and ready to chat about his 4-decade-long career. "Morris, it's such an honor to have you here," Jennifer began warmly. "I've been a fan since I was a little girl, listening to my parents play your music around the house." Morris smiled, adjusting his jacket. "Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's always a pleasure to be here with someone who appreciates real music. You know what I mean? The kind of music that actually means something." That last comment carried a sharp edge, though Jennifer didn't immediately catch it. She continued with her prepared questions, asking about his creative process and what inspired his latest work. Morris grew more animated as he spoke about how music today lacks the soul and authenticity that artists like him brought to the scene back in the day. "You see, Jennifer, when we made music, we put our whole selves into it. We didn't have computers doing half the work for us. We had to actually sing, actually play instruments, actually connect with people on a real level." Jennifer nodded politely, but her expression shifted slightly. "I think there's incredible talent in every generation, Morris. Artists today are doing amazing things with the tools available to them." "Tools?" Morris scoffed. "That's exactly the problem. Music isn't about tools. It's about talent. Raw, unfiltered talent. Something you either have or you don't." The audience began sensing the rising tension. Jennifer's smile tightened as she tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "Let's talk about your upcoming tour. I know your fans are excited to see you perform these classic hits live." But Morris wasn't ready to move on. "You know what, Jennifer? Since we're talking about talent and authenticity, I have to ask you something," Morris said, leaning forward. "Do you really think some of these artists today, these reality show winners and contest participants, do you think they have what it takes to create lasting music?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jennifer, who had risen to fame through American Idol before becoming an Oscar and Grammy winner, immediately recognized the implication. Her face tightened, though she kept her composure. "I think talent comes in many forms, Morris," she said, her voice steady. "Success in the music industry requires hard work, dedication, and yes, talent, regardless of how someone gets their start." Morris leaned back, a knowing smile crossing his face. "That's a diplomatic answer, but we both know the truth. There's a difference between manufactured success and organic artistry. Some people earn their place through years of grinding and perfecting their craft, while others get fast-tracked through television exposure." The studio fell silent. Jennifer's jaw clenched, her professional demeanor beginning to crack. "Morris, are you suggesting that artists who get their start on competition shows aren't legitimate?" she asked, her voice tight. "I'm not suggesting anything, Jennifer," he replied coolly. "I'm stating a fact. Real artists don't need a platform handed to them. They create their own through pure talent and determination." Jennifer set her notes aside and looked him directly in the eye. "So, you're saying that someone like me who won American Idol isn't a real artist?" Morris shrugged. "Your words, not mine. But since you brought it up, let me ask you this. How many songs did you write before that show? How many instruments could you play? How many years did you spend grinding in small clubs and fighting for every opportunity?" The tension in the room was electric. Jennifer's voice sharpened. "I think you're confusing opportunity with talent. Yes, I got my start on a competition show, but everything I've accomplished since then has been through hard work and dedication." Has it, though? Morris pressed, clearly enjoying her discomfort. Or has it been through the machine already built around you? Record deals lined up, promotional campaigns ready, industry connections handed to you on a silver platter. Jennifer's voice rose. That's incredibly disrespectful, Morris. I've worked my tail off for everything I've achieved. I've won an Oscar, multiple Grammys, and I earned every single one of those accolades through my talent and effort. Morris waved dismissively. Awards don't mean much when they're handed out like participation trophies. Back in my day, you had to really prove yourself before anyone even thought about giving you recognition. That struck a nerve. Jennifer's eyes blazed. Participation trophies? Are you serious right now? You're questioning my legitimacy as an artist when I've proven myself time and time again in multiple fields. Multiple fields? Morris mocked. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Real artists focus on perfecting their craft, not spreading themselves thin across movies, television, and whatever else keeps them in the spotlight. Jennifer stood up slightly in her chair. So now you're criticizing me for being versatile, for taking on different challenges, for growing as an artist and exploring different mediums? Morris remained seated, completely calm, which only seemed to infuriate her more. I'm not criticizing anything, Jennifer. I'm just pointing out the difference between someone who's dedicated their entire life to music and someone who treats it as one option among many. The studio was dead silent, except for the cameras still rolling. Jennifer looked like she was fighting to maintain her composure, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. You know what, Morris? I've been nothing but respectful to you this entire interview. And you've done nothing but insult me and my career. I haven't insulted anyone, Morris countered smoothly. I've simply shared my perspective on what real artistry looks like versus what passes for artistry in today's manufactured entertainment industry. Jennifer's voice was shaking. Now, whether from anger or hurt, it was hard to tell. Your perspective is outdated and frankly, it's bitter. You're sitting here trying to diminish my accomplishments because what? You feel threatened by artists who found success differently than you did? For the first time, Morris showed some emotion, his eyebrows rising slightly. Threatened by a reality show contestant? I don't think so, sweetheart. The condescending sweetheart was the final straw. Jennifer's professional mask dropped completely. Don't you dare call me sweetheart, she snapped, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. I am a professional. I am your host, and I am not some little girl you can patronize. Morris looked genuinely surprised at her intensity, but instead of backing down, he doubled down. Whoa, calm down there. I was just being friendly. Friendly. Jennifer's laugh was sharp and humorless. You've spent the last 10 minutes questioning my legitimacy, dismissing my achievements, and now you want to call it friendly? That's not friendly, Morris. That's disrespectful. The camera operators captured every micro-expression on both their faces. Morris shifted in his seat, clearly not expecting this level of pushback. Look, I'm just being honest about the state of the music industry. If you can't handle an honest conversation about artistry, maybe you shouldn't be interviewing real musicians. Real musicians? Jennifer's voice went up an octave. Are you suggesting I'm not a real musician? I've sold millions of records. I've performed with some of the greatest artists of our time. I've been recognized by every major music institution in this country. Morris waved his hand in that same dismissive gesture, clearly getting under her skin. Selling records doesn't make you a musician, Jennifer. Having a good marketing team and being on the right television show at the right time, that's not the same as being an artist. Jennifer stood fully now, her hands planted firmly on her desk. You know what, Morris? I've had enough of this. You came on my show. You accepted my invitation, and now you're sitting here insulting me and everything I've worked for. What gives you the right? The right? Morris laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. 40 years in this business gives me the right. Being part of a group that actually changed music gives me the right. Creating something original instead of covering other people's songs on national television gives me the right, Morris said, the jab landing hard. During her time on American Idol, Jennifer had primarily performed covers, and Morris knew exactly what he was doing by bringing it up. Her face flushed with anger. "You want to talk about originality, Morris?" Jennifer shot back. "Let's talk about it. How many of your biggest hits were actually written by Prince? How much of your success came from riding on his coattails and his creative genius?" Morris's expression shifted as he looked stunned. The mention of Prince clearly struck a nerve. And for the first time, he looked genuinely angry. "Excuse me, Prince and I were collaborators. We were partners in creating something revolutionary." "Collaborators?" Jennifer countered. "From what I remember, Prince wrote your songs, produced your albums, and basically created your entire image. So, if we're talking about manufactured success and riding on someone else's talent, maybe you should look in the mirror." Morris stood up abruptly, his chair rolling back with a loud scrape. "You don't know what you're talking about. Prince and I had a creative partnership that lasted decades. We built something together that influenced an entire generation of musicians." "I respect that," Jennifer said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But don't you think it's a little hypocritical to sit here questioning my authenticity when your biggest claim to fame is being associated with someone else's genius?" Morris's face turned bright red. "That's completely different, and you know it. Prince and I were a team from the beginning. We grew up together in Minneapolis. We developed our sound together. That's not the same as winning a singing contest and having a career handed to you." Jennifer laughed bitterly. "Handed to me? Are you kidding me right now? Do you think winning American Idol was easy? Do you think the years of training, the performances, the competition against incredibly talented people was just handed to me?" "Yeah, I do," Morris replied without hesitation. "You sang songs that were already hits in front of judges who were looking for the next marketable personality. That's not artistry. That's auditioning." The insult was so sharp that even the studio crew looked uncomfortable. Behind the cameras, Jennifer's producer made frantic hand gestures, clearly trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. "You know what, Morris?" Jennifer said, her voice dangerously quiet now. "I invited you here to talk about your music, to give you a platform to promote your work, to celebrate your contributions to music. Instead, you've spent this entire time trying to tear me down and diminish my accomplishments." Morris crossed his arms. "I'm not tearing anyone down. I'm just speaking truth about the difference between earned success and manufactured success. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." Jennifer's composure finally snapped. "What makes me uncomfortable is having a guest come on my show and disrespect me in front of my audience. What makes me uncomfortable is someone who benefited from Prince's genius lecturing me about authenticity." Morris's face darkened. "Don't you ever question my relationship with Prince? You have no idea what you're talking about, and you have no right to speak on something you weren't there for, and you have no right to question my journey or my talent." "The difference between us, Morris," Jennifer fired back, "is that I've never needed to put other artists down to make myself feel better about my own success." Morris took a step closer to Jennifer's desk. "The difference between us is that I earned my place in music history through decades of innovation and creativity, while you got famous by singing other people's songs on television." The studio audience was completely silent. Sensing this had gone way beyond a typical interview disagreement, Jennifer looked at Morris with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "I cannot believe the level of disrespect you're showing me right now," she said slowly. "I've accomplished things in my career that most artists can only dream of. And I've done it through hard work, dedication, and yes, talent." "Real talent?" Morris smirked. "If you say so." Those 4 words, delivered with such casual disdain, were like lighting a fuse. Jennifer's eyes blazed with fury as she prepared to unleash everything she'd been holding back. "If I say so," she repeated. her voice rising to a level that made everyone in the studio freeze. "If I say so, Morris, let me tell you something about saying so. I say so because I've proven it over and over again. I've proven it on Broadway. I've proven it in movies. I've proven it on records. And I've proven it every single day of my career." Morris rolled his eyes, which was absolutely the wrong move at that moment. "Here we go with the resume again." "Yes, here we go with the resume," Jennifer shot back, her voice now echoing through the studio. "Because unlike some people, I don't have to live in the past or put other artists down to validate my worth. My resume speaks for itself, and if that bothers you, that's your problem, not mine." Morris laughed, but it wasn't pleasant. It was condescending and mean-spirited. "Your resume was written by television producers and record executives who saw dollar signs. My resume was written by audiences who experienced something real." "Something real?" Jennifer was practically shouting now. "You want to talk about something real? Real is standing on that American Idol stage week after week singing my heart out, while millions of people judged every note. Real is taking that opportunity and turning it into a career that spans multiple industries. Real is winning an Oscar for my first movie role because I brought something authentic to that character." Morris shook his head dismissively. "Anyone can act emotional and win an Oscar these days. The standards aren't what they used to be." That comment about her Oscar was the final blow. Jennifer's face went from angry to absolutely livid. "Get out!" "What?" Morris looked genuinely confused. "I said, get out," Jennifer repeated, pointing toward the exit. "This interview is over. I will not sit here and let you disrespect me, my career, and my achievements any longer." Morris looked around the studio as if he couldn't believe what was happening. "Are you serious right now? You're kicking me off your show because I'm telling the truth about the music industry? I'm kicking you off my show because you're being deliberately insulting and disrespectful," Jennifer replied, her voice steady but filled with controlled rage. "This was supposed to be an interview about your music, not an opportunity for you to attack me personally." Morris started gathering his things, but he wasn't done talking. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Young artists today can't handle any criticism or real conversation about the industry. Everything has to be sugar-coated and fake positive." Jennifer's voice cracked with disbelief. "You think what you've been doing is criticism? You've been personally attacking me from the moment you sat down. That's not criticism. That's just being cruel." Morris stood up, adjusting his jacket with an air of superiority. "I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. And if you can't handle honesty about your career and how you got here, then maybe you shouldn't be in this business." "Don't you dare tell me what business I should or shouldn't be in," Jennifer snapped. "I've earned my place here through talent, hard work, and dedication. Something you would understand if you spent less time living in the past and more time recognizing the present." Morris headed toward the exit, but turned back one more time. "The present is exactly the problem, Jennifer. The present is full of manufactured artists who think winning a contest makes them legitimate. The present has forgotten what real music sounds like." Jennifer had heard enough. "Security!" she called out, though Morris was already walking away on his own. "Don't worry about security," Morris called over his shoulder. "I'm leaving. But just remember, when all the television shows and marketing campaigns are over, real artistry is what lasts. And some of us will still be here when the manufactured stars fade away." With that, Morris Day walked off the set, leaving Jennifer standing behind her desk, visibly shaking with anger and frustration. The studio audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud or remain quiet. Jennifer took a deep breath, trying to compose herself for the cameras still rolling. "Well," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I guess that's one way to end an interview." She looked directly into the camera, her professional training kicking in despite everything that had just happened. "I want to apologize to our audience for what just transpired. That was not the kind of conversation I intended to have, and it certainly wasn't the respectful dialogue that our guests and our viewers deserve. The camera caught her pausing, clearly still processing what had just happened. I've always believed that there's room in this industry for artists from all backgrounds, with all different paths to success. What matters is the music, the art, and the connection we make with audiences. Not how we got our start, but where we take it.